Okay, so you want to reach the bottom of the mines, but you want to know how to do it with as little struggle as possible? Look no further, because I've got you covered. Today I'll be taking you through all the needed tips and strategies to make your time in the mines the easiest and most enjoyable it can be. So without further ado, let's hop right into the guide with the basics of the mines. Disclaimer, there is no correct way to play this game, and it is all up to personal preference. I'm just simply sharing my experiences with the mines. Anyways, let's go. The mines are located toward the top left of the map in this castle-like structure, just past the museum in the Narrows. To get here from your farm, you can either head through Mistria or through Hayden's farm. Neither way is much better than the other. From the start of your playthrough, the mines will not be unlocked, and to unlock it you will need to reach town rank 10, and then visit the mine entrance, which will trigger a cutscene which will unblock the mines for you. Once you step inside, you have 3 things to use. On the left, you have a dragon statue, which allows you to spend essence on important skill perks, which I will cover later in the video. In the middle is the ladder down to the first floor of the mines, and on the right is the elevator, which will allow you to travel down to floors 5, 10, 15, etc. once you reach them, so you don't have to travel through every floor every day. On your first trip to the mines, you will definitely need your pickaxe and your sword, and maybe your fishing rod and bug net if you have them, but that's not overly necessary. Once you head down the ladder, you will begin facing some enemies and finding some copper ore. To progress further down the mines, you will need to find the ladder, which has a random chance to spawn every time you mine a rock or kill an enemy, taking you down 1 floor at a time. Your main goals each day in the mine will consist of 2 things. Getting down at least 5 floors so you can use the elevator to get back down the next day, and also getting as much ore as you can find to craft into the tools and armor to make your life easier. The mines can be a challenge because of the annoying enemies you will inevitably counter even on the very early floors. As a general tip, you should definitely invest in this combat skill perk at the dragon statue at the top of the mines. This perk allows for the jump attack, which deals double the damage of your sword in a large area. To do this attack, simply press space to jump, and while you are in the air, left click with your sword. In my experience, this attack is easier to control and does a lot of damage, making the enemies quite easy to deal with. However, some enemies require specific strategies to counter, and I will go through those later in the video. There are many things to be found in the mines, and a lot of them can be donated to the museum. This includes ores, artifacts, insects, fish, enemy drops, and forageables. Basically, if you see something new, you will want to collect it and donate it to the museum, as you can get some nice money from completing sets in the museum. Once you have collected 40 copper ore, you can forge yourself 4 copper ingots at the anvil outside the blacksmith. This is enough to craft 1 tool, weapon, or armor piece. For your first tool of each ore type, I would highly recommend going with a pickaxe, as it will preserve more energy in the mines because each rock will take slightly less hits to break, thus using less energy, and also speeding up the rate you will be going down floors. You will also obtain more ore faster. What you can also do is go into the blacksmith shop and purchase yourself a copper tool for 1000 tesserae, which is good because it doesn't require any copper to obtain, but is very optional if you want to be spending your money elsewhere, such as on crops or other things. I did do this in my playthrough because I wanted to get to the bottom of the mines as fast as I could, which I will link the video in the description if you want to check it out. As you obtain more ore, you will want to craft all of the ore into ingots to up your blacksmithing level to level 8, because once you reach level 8, you are able to craft every copper item. There are also skill perks you can purchase back at the farm from Calderus, which can reduce the number of ore required to craft an ingot, and reduce the time it takes to craft things, which both are incredibly useful, so I would recommend having a look at that. Anyways, side note, from here on in, there are spoilers for the story, so continue at your own risk. Once you reach floor 20, you will be blocked off by the water seal. To break this, you will need to bring a rubbing of the tablet to Island to decode, and once you have done that, you need to bring 4 offerings. These offerings are a ruby, a lantern moth, an upper mines mushroom, and a stone loach. These 4 items are all found in the first 19 floors of the mines, so begin your search there. The ruby is obtained from ruby ores or as a rarer drop from treasure chests. The lantern moth looks like this and will be found anywhere as an insect and will require a bug net to catch. The upper mines mushroom looks like this and will spawn anywhere on the ground. And the stone loach will be found in the waters of the caves. Stone loaches are a medium-sized fish, so look out for the fish shadows that aren't that big but aren't too small either, and those will have a pretty high chance of dropping the stone loach. Obviously, you will need a fishing rod for this, which can be crafted at the blacksmith or bought from the store at the beach. Once you have completed all 4 offerings, you will gain a heart crystal, which upon consumption will increase your health by 20, and you now have access to the next 20 floors of the mines. With these new floors comes a new cave biome, iron ore, new artifacts, new fish, new forageables, and of course, harder enemies. These enemies are basically upgraded versions of the pre-Floor 20 enemies and require very similar strategies to deal with. Other than that, you should have no problem continuing down from here. Just make sure you are collecting as much iron as you can and crafting it into tools and weapons at the blacksmith. Ideally a pickaxe and sword first. Once you reach floor 40, you'll once again be greeted by yet another seal. After completing the quest tied to the tablet in the center, you will need another 4 offerings. These offerings are a coral mantis, a sapphire, an archerfish, and jade dulse. Similar to the previous seal, you will find all of these items within floors 20 to 40. Coral mantis will spawn randomly, sapphires will come from sapphire ore and treasure chests, the jade dulse looks like this and will appear randomly on the floor, and the archerfish is classified as a small fish, so look out for small fish's shadows to catch this fish. Once you've completed all 4 offerings, you will gain a heart crystal, and you will now have access to the last 20 floors of the mines, as of right now. From here on in, you will find silver ore, new fish, new forageables, new insects, and trickier enemies. The main idea here is to gather as much silver as you can and get as much silver gear as possible, starting with the pickaxe and sword. Anyways, that's it for the general overview of what's going on in the mines. I'll now move on to skill perks. There are so many skill perks to obtain, and it might be a bit overwhelming. Don't get me wrong, I think you should definitely invest in all of them, but there are at least some that are more useful than others. And I will be going through a couple that I think are very necessary for your quality of life in the mines and/or are very useful. For mining skill perks, there are 2 that I really like. At tier 1, I highly recommend getting Treasure Hunter because that will allow you to come across treasure floors which are pretty great. At level 15, you can unlock the Mine Time skill perk, which gives you a 10-second speed boost upon entering a new floor, which is pretty nice for exploring the floor quickly. For combat skills, there is only one that I would definitely recommend. As I've said before, this one is the Jump Attack skill perk, because that makes combat a lot easier and can save you from dying so many times. For blacksmithing skill perks, basically all the perks that reduce the amount of time to craft things and the ones that allow for infusions upon crafting will be your best friend. Infusions are rare but give small boosts to your tools and armor if you get lucky enough to craft one with an infusion. That's around it for the mining skill perks. So let's take a look at the different floor types that can be found in the mines. There are 5 different floor types that can be found in the mines. Number 1, the normal floor. This floor is normal, hence the name, and will contain nothing special. Just find the ladder as usual. Number 2, the locked ladder floor. This floor is basically a normal floor, but the only difference is that the ladder is locked behind a lever found somewhere around the floor. Once you flick this lever, the ladder will unlock. As far as I know, you cannot find the ladder by breaking rocks or killing enemies on a locked ladder floor. 3. The fountain floor. The fountain floor is pretty rare, but is a normal floor that contains a pool of drinkable water, which upon drinking will grant you an extra 20 health and stamina. Number 4. The Dragon Priestess floor. The Dragon Priestess floor is also pretty rare, but is a normal floor that contains a Dragon's Priestess statue. If you interact with the statue, it will ask you for an offering of either 10 stone, 3 iron ore, or 3 coral. If you give it this offering, it will grant you a gift of one of 3 things: a health boost, a stamina boost, or a bunch of essence. Number 5. The Treasure Floor. The Treasure Floor is by far the best floor. It will contain no enemies, a treasure chest, a bunch of ores, and an already exposed ladder. However, you can only come across this floor if you have purchased the corresponding skill perk which I have mentioned earlier. Now it's time to meet the enemies, where I'll be going over the basic strategies to defeat each one. Saplings. Saplings leap towards you and do damage upon landing, and also briefly stun themselves after landing, allowing you to get hits in for free. The safest way to deal with these are to wait for it to jump, run away from where it will land, and go in for a couple hits while it's stunned. This works for all of the sapling enemies found on every floor. Rock Clods and Ore Clods. Clods spit out a varying number of rocks at the player and take a maximum of 1 damage if you hit it with a sword. This means to actually deal with the clods, you want to wait for it to shoot at you and reflect the rock back by hitting it with your sword. The timing can be pretty tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes relatively simple. This works for all Rock Clod enemies found on every floor, but some of them shoot out varying amounts of rocks at different speeds, so you will have to account for that. Mushrooms. Mushrooms will approach the player and once in range will trigger a small gas explosion dealing damage to the player, and will block attacks when it is in its hiding position, which can be incredibly annoying. The easiest way to deal with these is to use the jump attack on them, as this stuns them and allows you to just kill them for free with a few chained jump attacks. This works on all variants of the mushroom enemy. Enchanterns. Enchanterns have two phases, on and off. During their on phase, it will run towards the player, and if the player comes near it, it will damage the player and go into its off phase. During its off phase, it will not damage the player and will run away to charge back up again. The safest way to deal with it is to wait for the Enchantern to switch off because it only stays on for a limited amount of time, and once it's off you can go in and get some hits. You have to be pretty patient with these guys or you may end up taking a lot of damage. This strategy works for both variants of the Enchantern. And last but not least, Stalagmites. Stalagmites are an enemy only found after floor 20 and will burrow through the floor until it comes underneath the player. Once underneath the player, it will come up and try and damage the player, and then briefly get stunned before going back down into the ground to try again. To safely defeat it, walk on top of it while it's burrowing, run away quickly so you don't take damage, and then attack it while it's stunned until it is dead. This works for both variants of the Stalagmite. Anyway, that should be it for the beginner's guide to the mines. One bonus tip that is pretty useful is you want to have as much stamina as you can each day. This means always sleeping before 2 AM, bringing in food to the mines using your crops or as rewards from other quests, or using your mana points to use the full restore spell. This is also one of the reasons I recommend getting a pickaxe first, which is to conserve mana. Anyways, thank you for watching and I hope you found this useful. Stay tuned for more guides, more Fields of Mistria and possibly some other games. If you like what you see, subscribe, like and comment any other tips you may have or any questions, and I will try and answer them to the best of my ability. Remember, I am not an expert, I am just sharing my experience with the mines. Anyways, see ya dummies, thanks for watching.